Hi all, welcome to City Folk Homestead. My name is Paige if you're new here. I'm so sorry that I have not been posting videos. Our family got terribly sick, and so I decided to post a video instead of some content that I filmed in the fall, and hopefully this will bless you guys and shows how I deal with discouragement and how I learned the art of the pivot even on really difficult food preservation days. So without further ado, here is a Mississippi pot roast recipe and some homemade bread. I have been planning all day to make some homemade bread for Mississippi pot roast sandwiches that we are going to be having for dinner tonight, and that has not happened. In July, I bought 160 pounds of onions that were supposed to be the storage variety, the candy onions that you could really use until around January, February around here. I don't think that they were stored properly by me, and I don't think they were cured properly by the farmer, and so I had to throw about 30 away today, which I paid $1 per, so that was a big blow to me right now, and the baby is teething and the house is just kind of a wreck, and I've had quite a few different projects going on that I'm trying to balance, and I don't always get it right. And there's a lot of fun things that I'm doing, like these YouTube videos and some crocheting and my card making and some other things that I just haven't really prioritized well enough, and so I just kind of wanted to have a realistic chat on what life looks like just as a mom of young kids, let alone trying to do this whole transformation from city folk to homesteader. And so I want to clean up my house a little bit and just talk to you a little bit, give you my heart, and also hopefully at the end we'll both leave a little bit more encouraged than how I'm at least starting right now. So come join me, friends. Welcome to City Folk Homestead. Being a first-generation homeschool mom and homemaker and homesteader, I am learning a lot of skills along the way and also make a lot of mistakes. And when you are purchasing something that is organic and locally grown, it can add up to be really expensive mistakes. And while I try to be a good steward of the things that my husband works for to provide for us and what I purchase, sometimes I do end up having more waste than what I would prefer, and I have to learn how to not let that get me down and to just keep moving forward. I just put on my husband's flip-flops and it's been raining and my feet are wet, which is so gross. But I'm gonna take you to see my chickens. Opening up the chicken run to let my chickens free range every day is honestly such a highlight for me. We had never imagined when Dylan and I first got married 10 years ago this year that we would ever be homesteaders or have chickens, and now I just couldn't imagine my life without them. There's nothing like looking out my windows and seeing them free range and all of their funny little antics, the way that they have little happy clucks and the way that they just run across the yard is just so entertaining for me and the kids. On days when I am feeling discouraged, I try to look for things that maybe have been a pain point for a while and I just haven't had the time to address, or I'm looking for little wins. And this vodka has been on my countertops for a couple of months now. I purchased it when I was in the middle of making some vanilla extract as well as mullein tinctures, and I didn't end up needing this amount. I ended up changing gears a little bit with some of the things I was doing, the projects, and so I'm gonna put these down in the basement. Never fear, we will find something to use this for. It will not go to waste around here, but I'm gonna get it off my counters and just take it as a little win for me today. The same thing with these lemon juice bottles. I use this from Costco to do all my canning with, specifically for the tomatoes, and I don't need these anymore. I was going to use them for the vanilla extract, but I'm just tired of seeing them on my counter, and I have plenty of mason jars, so I'm just going to see if I can put these to another use that isn't on my counter. I wanted to show you guys the dinner that I am making tonight. This is Mississippi pot roast and I will post the recipe in the description box below. These are home canned banana peppers that I did this summer for the first time. I'm definitely going to find a new method in the future. They did not turn out super crisp, so I'm actually going to take those out before I end up getting the meat. And then there is this bone right here that I am going to then make some beef broth in the future. So I will just throw it into the freezer and continue to collect our bones from our cow that we purchased. And then we'll make broth in the future. So I wanted to show you how delicious dinner is and why I needed the bread that I still haven't started. So we'll get cleaned up and then hopefully we'll be able to start on that. This is the next mess that I need to tackle. This is actually what I made more onion powder in today with some freeze-dried onions, as I'm trying to get through all of the ones that are getting gross. So I'm just gonna leave this here and put it on the other table for tomorrow. Me and my mom are going to do a big onion processing day, and then I'm gonna clean this up because this is the specific corner in the countertop area that I make all of my breads in, and I want to do that again today. So first we gotta clean up a little bit. When I set out to preserve our own food and learned how to process either via canning or dehydrating or freeze drying, I never could have imagined how many simultaneous steps in the process there were. And so I've always been someone who likes to clean up as I go, but sometimes that's just impossible. Now that my counters are clean, I'm able to finally move on to the bread making that I wanted to get done earlier. Sometimes I will look at a bread recipe and think that I have enough time to make it in time for dinner, but I never take into account, even a year and a half after learning how to make my own bread, the amount of time that it takes for it to cool down. I, for so many months, would just cut into the bread as soon as it came out of the oven or it hadn't cooled down correctly and could never understand why my bread was gummy. And then I learned that you have to let it cool down completely. And so I was really frustrated knowing that we probably would cut into some pretty warm bread, and you'll see in a little bit that it actually turned out a weirder shape than what I was anticipating. It didn't quite have as much of a rise upward. It just kind of like rose out and got fatter and flatter, and I'm not too sure what caused that, but the flavor was absolutely fantastic. I loved adding all these different inclusions. I've never added herbs before, so I had some locally grown dehydrated basil that I wanted to add in there, along with some thyme and some rosemary and just whatever I could find that I thought would taste good. This recipe with the seasonings was supposed to mimic like a Subway type of sandwich, which is my husband's favorite type of sub bread. And so I was trying to make that for him today, and I don't know if it really turned out to be quite exactly the same, but it was very, very tasty. And so I'm just adding whatever I thought would add a good flavor. For my first couple of months doing bread making as well, I really lacked the flavor in the bread, which was disappointing. And of course I can never have a project without getting a little extra help in the kitchen, which is so fun, as I did not grow up that way, but it is difficult at times for me to find ways to incorporate them. So when I added a little bit more sugar to the flour, I knew this was a perfect time for my 2-year-old to help me. I realize now that I do not have a video of me shaping this dough and letting the first rise happen, but as you can see, it got all over my towel, so it rose beautifully, but it also went out more than what I was anticipating. So I was contemplating how I'm going to shape this dough and actually get it in the oven. So I thought maybe I could do it in a bigger pan and just transfer it. But once I started trying to separate these 4 loaves and get them to be able to be picked up so that I could transfer them, I realized very quickly that that was not going to happen. So I just took a spatula and just tried to separate the 4 loaves the best I could, and ultimately just ended up baking it on that same sheet. In order to get the seasonings to stick, I first brushed my dough with a little bit of water and then sprayed some avocado spray so that the herbs and the salt would all stick to the top of the dough. The next time that I made this, I actually ended up making it as an inclusion, but I think I do like it better just sprinkled on top and then topped with some cheese, just to have the flavor of the dough be just a normal bread, and then it doesn't change the texture of the bread, but then adds the flavor on the top. These last few clips and the following are obviously on double speed. I wish I moved this fast. I feel like I would be a lot more productive and get a lot more done, but alas, that is not something I was gifted with. So I put the bread in the oven, and now I'm just going through the Mississippi pot roast and pulling out the pieces of fat. We like maybe a little bit of fat just for that flavor and things, but we don't enjoy necessarily chewing in the texture of all the fat, so I'm trying to get off as much as I can. I have a little bit of the Mississippi pot roast. This is made with a beef chuck roast, 4 tablespoons of butter, and some homemade seasonings. That's really good. I like it a lot. I could definitely work on my form, but this bread was so delicious. So check out the recipe, and thank you so much for joining me today, friends.